What's going on, guys? Pete Nova here with Player Profiler. I'm joined by my colleague Chuck Bass, and today we're going to do a little bit of a different risers and fallers show. It's going to take a look at trade values. Today we're looking at the most traded players in Dynasty currently. Chuck, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Feeling good. We are into hypothetical season. We are moving into the land of where nobody can be right, nobody can be wrong, and just hope that people don't come back and fall in next off season and throw these takes back in our face.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of it, right? That's the beauty of it. But let's just get into our first player. It's going to be Chris Olave. Chris Olave has been traded 1,455 times since the NFL draft concluded, and the number one most traded player currently per Dynasty Daddy. Chuck, is he a riser or a faller for you?
I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. I got my Cafe Du Monde New Orleans mug out for this one specifically. I feel like I'm the last man standing on Olave Island, and the prize for that might just be a continental breakfast. I'm not sure. He's got a fast draft ADP of 66, and he's a faller in that market. So, feeling like for me personally, while he's a riser, he's getting poo pooed across the board here. The concussion concerns don't really bother me. They were a direct result of Derek Carr, who is getting ready to learn Chinese as we speak. So we're moving on to greener pastures. On top of the talent, there's just not many more players in the league that have a bigger gap between target competition. Shaheed is still coming back from the torn meniscus, and even when he's on the field, he's going to be like a 6 target guy at best. Bring in Kellen Moore, who has been the king of target consolidation between his time with the Cowboys, with the Chargers, with the Eagles. He funnels targets to his best players, and he is by far their best player. Career 14 points per game. If you take out the ones where Derek Carr wasn't trying to get him killed, that would have had him as a low wide receiver one last year in that AJ Brown, Drake London tier. So I'm ready for some Chris Olave love. I'm buying him like crazy.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the Chris Olave purchase. It really depends though. Like if I'm in this scenario here, if I'm a James Cook owner, I'm probably not moving Cook for Olave, but ironically both of these players have similar risk. This is a two quarterback 12 team start 10 full PPR.
Yeah.
Chuck, where would you I mean, some of these are team dependent and we obviously don't know what these teams are, but in a vacuum, Chris Olave or James Cook, which one would you prefer?
I like these because you're looking at James Cook, who I think is probably hitting his ceiling if he didn't hit it last year, versus Chris Olave, who has been in the basement as far as his situation goes over the last 2 to 3 years for his time in the league. So catch me at a guy who I think has a lot more to go versus a guy who I think is already starting to peak a little bit. I mean, the fact that he's not, they're not bending over backwards to give James Cook what he wants, nor should they, kind of tells me what their plan is for the future of him.
Yeah, I think touchdown regression is inevitable for James Cook. I mean, scoring 18 touchdowns last year and not even being in the top 10 for points per game for the running back position is a little worrisome to me. When you look at Chris Olave, I, you know, the biggest fear with Olave is the concussions, right? Like you
Yeah.
worry that he is possibly a concussion away, right? But Alvin Kamara had 89 targets in this offense at his age. Let's say he regresses somewhat. You had
Mm.
Shaheed who was out last year. It's going to take him likely some time to come back. But Olave in the 8 games that he played, 44 targets. That's not terrible. We would like to see that a little higher because if you just that's pretty much half a season, so that's really only on pace for about 88 targets. But this offense seemed a little off, right? We had the issues with Derek Carr, who did deal with some injuries as well. I don't think Derek Carr was playing in every single game with Olave last year. But when we look at some of these other trades, like Chris Olave for Chase Brown, I still think I prefer Chase Brown in that situation. But he's been in a ton of trades lately. And I mean, he's just there's just a ton of movement on this guy. I'm trying to see if we can get a feel. This is a good example here, right? Olave for a 2-3. I think I'm taking Olave all day there. But if you're at the 2-3 in a 12 team super flex PPR 0.5 tight end premium, those tight ends probably get pushed up first round. So Loveland and Warren probably go. And then at the 203, you're likely going to get possibly a Matthew Golden or a Trey Harris. In this scenario, Chuck, are you buying Chris Olave at this cost of a 203?
Now that's where I probably feel like that's his ceiling, right? Like these people that we're gonna like a Matthew Golden type, those are gonna projected to be in situations where Chris Olave already is with experience. So if you want the youth, maybe, and you can see that path for him, I can see you taking that route. I personally just want Olave because I think we've been watching him play at his floor. It's hard to take what we've seen from the New Orleans Saints and apply it to what they're about to do because no 31 other teams in the league, including the Browns, would not run their team like the Saints have been running their team. So there's plenty of bungalows still available on Olave Island if anybody wants to come join me.
Yeah, I think the last thing I would close out with Olave is this is a guy that outside of last year, we know he was only on pace for 88 targets, before he got hurt. But overall, Olave, I mean, in 16 games in 2023, 138 targets. He missed a game in 2022, 119 targets. I mean, this is a guy that came in as a rookie and commanded 119 targets. They upgrade with Kellen Moore. And honestly, I think Derek Carr, he was bad, but he wasn't as bad as some people maybe make it seem. But overall, I think Chris Olave is a really solid buy. I'd be willing to go up as far as like a 112, and I've sent offers out for. I have a projected late first in 2026. I'm willing to send that out for Chris Olave if you need help in your wide receiver room and you're competing.
Yeah.
So I think we can kind of go ahead and close the book on Olave unless you had anything else that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I'll give my classic fantasy projection or glass half full take, I'll drink the Kool-Aid. If you take out the games that he left because of concussion, which, you know what, that's the big knock on him. Is he going to keep leaving games during concussion? 7.3 targets per game, which would, extrapolate to 124 per season. You start to feel better about it, right? The problem is he going to continue to be on the field? How many games is he going to pull you out of? Because those are week killers. You lose one of your top two wide receivers and you're playing somebody and he leaves the game with a concussion, it's a wrap.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. You're buying the risk, but when he's on the field, I mean, it's hard to deny that he's a guy. I mean, the problem with Olave has always really been the touchdowns, right? And can he get into the end zone? But we'll see. But I think for me, Chuck, to close that out, is he a riser for you or is he a faller? I think based on what I'm reading for some of these trades, I think he's a riser because at least they bring in Shuck. I would have been fine if they brought Shador, but at least they bring in another quarterback and they're not just rolling it with the
Yeah.
possibility that Carr comes back. And if not, they're rolling it with what's his face from last year who they
Rattler,
drafted.
yeah, with Rattler.
Yeah.
Jake Haener, everybody's favorite model.
Yeah.
He's a faller that I'm trying to take advantage of.
Okay. That's a fair way to put it. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next player. The next player on this list is going to be the New York Jets starting quarterback, Justin Fields. And Fields is a pretty polarizing player, right? You either really like him or you really hate him. You're either making excuses for why he hasn't been successful in the NFL, or you're throwing all of those excuses out the window and just pointing to the fact that maybe he's not a great quarterback like some thought he was going to be. But Justin Fields is the number 2 traded quarterback or traded player in all of Dynasty right now. He's been traded 1,381 times since the NFL draft. Chuck, what are your thoughts on Fields? Is he a guy that you're currently buying? And if so, what are you willing to give up for him?
This is just one of the all-time funniest ones because we've been here a million times with a million different players, but we can see he is your classic 1-year rental, maybe 2 years if it goes well with the Jets. His best ball ADP right now is quarterback 11. So everyone is kind of in agreement, like regardless of the situation. Look, we've seen him succeed from a fantasy standpoint with the Bears, with the Steelers. You're telling me with the way those organizations are run offensively, he can't do the same with the Jets, with Garrett Wilson, with Breece Hall, Mason Taylor coming in. This is not some unattainable feat. So I don't really care what anybody has to say about his talent. I'm not worried about winning football games. I'm worried about points per game. 19 points per game in games that he started over the last 3 years puts him right behind Jalen Hurts last year. So think about the value you're getting. You're not getting typical quarterback one prices in these dynasty trades keeper trades, what have you, because people are having trouble projecting what year 3, year 4 looks like. And you're probably wise to do so, but think about what happened with Baker Mayfield, right? Baker Mayfield took a prove it deal, and now he basically saved a franchise that needed saving and towards the end of that Tom Brady era. Now it's Justin Fields' turn to save the Jets from their Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson, Mike White, Joe Flacco, Sam Darnold, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle era. So I'm approaching this as you have a top 7 quarterback for the next 2 years at a discounted trade rate. Whatever happens after that is cherry on top. I say go all in and put yourself in debt if you have.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, with Fields, and we'll pull up the trades now, but with Fields overall, right, this is a guy that we've seen number 9 in points per game and number 5 in points per game in 2022 and 2023. 2021, he was 31st. The Bears were really bad, right? They surrounded him with a little bit more talent in 2022 and 2023, and he ended up playing better. In 2024, right, he was 29th in points per game with 12. So I mean, when Fields is on the field, he's generally good for fantasy. I expect this to be a running team as well. I expect them to lean more on the run than they do pass. They didn't really add a ton of pieces in this Jets offense outside of Mason Taylor from LSU. And then obviously they have Garrett Wilson, but outside of that, really don't have much on the pass catcher side. So you're really going to be hoping that, Fields is being used with his legs. And this is a team that's not heavily invested in Fields. So they can go ahead and ask him to run with the football and maybe not be nearly as concerned about the injuries.
No, I love that. I mean, you look at last year, right? His time in Chicago, what did he have? He had a DJ Moore and a little bit of Cole Kmet. Last year, he had George Pickens and some Pat Fryermuth. Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor, pretty much as long as he's got maybe his 1-2, he's going to continue to produce. You throw away the first 2 games last year because he's getting used to a new offense. Arthur Smith plays the Broncos, brutal matchup. Quarterback 12, quarterback 1, quarterback 16, quarterback 7 after that. Like, regardless of what Russell Wilson did with the offense for the rest of the year, which wasn't much, this was a guy who just stepped onto the field and took care of business. And that's what you're getting. You're getting a starting top 12 quarterback for your fantasy rosters. And look at some of these trades that he's going into. I mean, we'll scroll up a little bit. I saw one with Geno Smith to the top right. Geno Smith for Justin Fields. That is insane no matter where you are in your roster building. And I'm a big Geno Smith guy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I would fair in terms of I would be taking Fields here. I mean, this is a 10-team 1 quarterback league. Like, there's no reason to be having Geno Smith on your roster
Psycho.
in a 10-teamer, especially if it's not super flex.
Yeah.
These are guys like I like Geno, but Geno's a guy that you could likely pick up later on in the year and plug in, because I know most dynasty leagues don't have much on waivers, but when it's a 10-team and it's 1 quarterback, like, depending on how deep the rosters are, there's no reason to be hoarding quarterbacks. And so I think Fields is the easy answer there. You're swinging for upside. And then if he doesn't work out, then maybe you look to see what's out there on waivers, because I'm sure there's a Matt Stafford who can get you by for this year. Looking at some of the other trades, like Fields for the 212 and a round 3 pick. We don't know obviously how late that is. But overall, like, I mean, if you're in a 2 quarterback, I mean, that's a really good deal for Fields. Devontae Adams for Fields is an interesting one.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go either way. I mean, it's hard to look at Fields because it's going to obviously be roster dependent. Most of these trades feel like they're roster dependent, but it's easier to kind of sift through them. When talking Fields for Adams, you can make the case either way, right? If you're a contender, right, but you don't have a quarterback too, you take a chance on a guy like Fields, and giving up Adams while it hurts, I mean, how much longer does Adams have? And you might be good at the wide receiver position, but Fields is going to help you out on a week-to-week basis more on a points per game basis than, say a guy like a Geno Smith, right?
Yeah.
A QB2 who probably ends up averaging 4 points per game less.
And something else that I always like to point to with a quarterback like Justin Fields, 26 years old, Cam Newton at 31 years old for New England, 12 rushing touchdowns. I mean, you're talking about these guys, they're always going to have, and look, Cam's a top 3 rushing quarterback all time. Don't get me wrong. Fields might be top 5 when he's on, his maybe per game average. So we're talking about somebody who still has a lot of runway, I think. So he's not going to be just he doesn't have an expiration date. And so if you're trading him for somebody like a Devontae Adams, that's got to be like a one for you need this, I need that. Let's scratch each other's back situation.
But before we move on, if you're watching the show and you see how many times I have to click off of these ads, please let us know in the comments because
I saw an Ozempic ad, which I know a lot of people who are going to be happy about that.
I'm trying my best. I swear we're not affiliated with any of them.
Mhm.
The last one I want to talk about is this here with Baker Mayfield for Fields and a 201.
Yeah.
In this situation, I would take Baker. What I would say about the quarterback position, I still think Baker is not valued correctly. People worry about his age, right? But quarterbacks age so much better than other positions. And Baker's not a guy that you're worried like, okay, his legs are going to, end up slowing down. That's not his style. He does run with the football, but it's not like he gets away with like being elite with his legs. And sometimes I think we overrate. I mean, people are playing. I get it. Like we're playing Dynasty, and you're trying to project out long term, but like Baker Mayfield, like I mean, unless something serious injury wise happens to him, or there's just a ton of turnover on the Bucks, like I mean, this is a guy that just had a career year, like, and we're sitting here worried because he's a little bit on the older side. What is he, low 30s, Chuck? I think he's like
Yeah, he's
31.
he's 30 right now. He'll turn 31 soon. They bring
Yeah,
in Mbuka. I mean, they're set up for that offense to not miss a beat. Running back's young. The offensive line is young. And I'm glad you brought up the rushing part. I mean, because the rushing is an element of his game, but it's an element of his game like it is for Patrick Mahomes. Like his bread and butter is throwing the damn ball down the field.
yeah. So I mean, that's one thing. I mean, Baker. I know we're talking about Fields. I'm buying Fields. I just bought both Baker and Fields actually in a league yesterday. Both of them in the same league. I ended up moving Mahomes because it is a one quarterback. And I moved Mahomes. I ended up getting Baker and a pick with it, and then I picked up Fields a little bit later on for something. I don't remember the exact cost, but overall, I just
I
think
like that.
I think we stress so much with these quarterbacks and age becomes such a factor, but everybody wants to have the youngest and the best, prettiest looking roster when at the end of the day, it's about winning. And Baker, I mean, he was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL last year.
He was
I mean,
incredible.
you
He
could
was
argue
incredible
all
with
about
or
that.
without Mike Evans or Chris Godwin in the lineup. He's just balling out.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right. So when we're moving on here, our next player we're going to talk about is going to be Tyrone Tracy, but we're not going to spend much time on Tyrone Tracy because, quite frankly, if you've watched the show, we have talked about Tyrone Tracy a ton. I just want to note that he's been traded 1,328 times. He's the third most traded player. If you've been listening to Chuck and myself, Tyrone Tracy is a guy that we have been saying you should be moving pre-draft and now post-draft. It seems like guys are moving him heavily, and we've seen a ton of movement since the NFL draft has ended, and there's definitely some concern there. Chuck, short note on Tracy, and then we'll move on to the next guy.
Yeah, right now his fast draft ADP is 56. It's down, but it's not down nearly as much as you would think it would be, and especially compared to some of these other guys. So I'm not quite sure how the market is split on how we're going to view him. I know personally, my note is that he's probably going to be the 1B, maybe the 2A to Scatterboo, especially with we considering how this team is built off what their drive is and how they want to kind of keep a short field contained. But I'm moving out on him. I'm just not moving out on his role for 2025.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Let's move on to our next player here who is making waves right now because as we record today, George Pickens was traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a third round pick and some late round pick swaps. And this is a guy that's been traded the fourth most in all of Dynasty since the NFL draft has ended. 1,284 times he's been moved, and I expect him to be moved a ton more. He might shoot up to number 1 by next week, just off of the trade news. Some people are going to be selling, some people are going to be buying. Chuck, what are your thoughts on George Pickens, the new landing spot, and is he a player that you're buying or selling off of this news?
This is the move of the offseason, and I want everybody here to just stand up, take a bow. We did it. We shamed the Cowboys into making a move. We got them to play ball. We all did this. All you listeners out there, Pete, everybody. So I want to thank you for being a part of this movement because your voice mattered. Fast draft ADP of 37 and rising. Pete, let's play a little trivia real quick. What wide receiver had the most receiving yards on go routes over the last 2 years?
I'd be surprised if it's George Pickens, but I'm gonna say Pickens.
One for one. What quarterback has the most passing yards on go routes over the last 2 years?
Uh, Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush, we'll go with it. You got it right. Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott brings it home. It's very rare that trades like this fit into a glove. It kind of reminds me of a poor man's version of AJ Brown to the Eagles, where he kind of just brought everything to the passing offense that they were missing. He just meshed so well with Jalen Hurts. I think Pickens will do the same with Prescott. The reception heat maps, when you look at where Pickens makes his bread and butter, it's just all the areas of the field that CeeDee Lamb doesn't cover, which isn't a lot. Don't get me wrong. CeeDee's everywhere, but he's just going to do so much for that offense. Dak is a great distributor who just a couple of years ago was the QB3 with Lamb and Ferguson as his top guys. So you tier them down, tier the tight ends down, tier Jalen Tolbert down to those third and fourth options, keep the offensive line afloat, which they did. And I think they've got a stew going. I am buying George Pickens.
Yeah, I think you could go a couple of different ways and look at this with George Pickens. He joins a team that really does complement his skill set. And overall, I mean, this is a passing attack that, should be throwing the football a decent amount. The rushing game is, I mean, Javonte, Miles Sanders, they brought in Jaden Blue, who I happen to like, but overall, I think it's a really good landing spot. When we look at the Steelers and the guys that they've let walk either via trade or free agency, Chase Claypool, Antonio Brown, even had Le'Veon Bell, who kind of flamed out, right? These guys that are big personalities, they have a tendency of drafting these volatile players who are very, you know, they're very talented, but they're very outspoken, right? And
Yeah.
they have some diva in them. So does George Pickens go that route as well and flame out, or does he take the Emmanuel Sanders route, who was amazing in Denver after he left in free agency with the Steelers? Time will tell. But what I would say about this is I'm going to pull up the trades here, and when you look at the recent trades just today, right? This is people live reacting to the trades, or to the trade of George Pickens to the Cowboys. You have the 108 for George Pickens in a
Mhm.
2-team super flex, no tight end premium. It's a half PPR and it's a 10 team.
Mhm.
Being that it's a 10 team, that's a little bit interesting. And then you also have this one here too, Tyreek Hill for Pickens straight up in a half PPR as well. A lot of half PPRs. That's a half tight end premium.
Half
Does any of
PPR
these
gang.
do any of these two trades? I mean, do you side one way or another on these two?
I like Pickens for Tyreek. That feels like a great, risk reward for balance for both of those. I don't like him for any first round picks this year. Really love the deep draft class. I think there's a lot of guys that have higher floors and higher ceilings. So, not a big fan there. That one beneath it is really interesting. Pickens for Terry McLaurin in a round 3. You got to really. I like Pickens going to the Cowboys, but he is still the clear. There's no 1B situation here. He's a clear 2. So a little iffy on some of these. We don't have the backstory, but at first glance, it's kind of funky to see his valuation all over the place.
I think this one is a buy for me with ETN in a 310. I think that's totally fair. Half PPR is helpful too because I don't think Pickens is going to get like this insane volume. It's going to go up. But half PPR helps. I would say Pickens for McCaffrey in a 211. I would still take the McCaffrey side, honestly. I'm assuming you're a contender. You're not really trading for McCaffrey if you're not a contender. And
Yeah.
I would definitely take him there. I would still take the Terry McLaurin here and the round 3.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even need the third round to be kicked in. I would take Terry for picking straight up if I could get Terry. So I mean they're interesting trades, and I'm with you here. The 108 for Pickens. I would be selling Pickens if I could get the 108 for sure. And then Tyreek and Pickens again, similar situations. Two guys that had issues with their teams. Pickens gets moved. It looks like Hill might be staying, but I still think I'm going to side with Hill because I've seen him do it, and he
Yeah.
was injured last year. So I'm probably taking almost all of these trades, I'm comfortable doing all these deals in moving Pickens. Maybe you could sway me on the Kamara one, but you're still getting a 2 with Kamara kicked in there, which I feel good about because Kamara's still been really good.
Yeah.
So I think this is a clear sign to me that take advantage and sell Pickens off of the hype. I think he could be productive there, but I'm willing to move him right now if I'm getting some of these prices back.
Yeah, let's not undervalue other current assets just because we have a hot new toy. Now if I'm have Pickens, I'm definitely trying to get him for some of those, and maybe I'm pumping up some of the Cowboys love there. But just be careful if a Pickens trade is in your inbox. Just settle down a little bit, take a beat.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's close that out and move on to our next player. So our next player that we're going to talk about is going to be Breece Hall, another New York Jet. We talked about Justin Fields. Now we're talking about Breece Hall. Breece Hall has been traded 1,277 times. He's the fifth most traded player currently. And I mean, I think people were a little nervous, right? Is he going to get moved, right? People are trying to buy him from owners that are worried that he's going to get traded.
Mm.
And then you have people that maybe are panic selling him because they thought he was going to get traded during the draft. There's still possibility. I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe that's why he's been moved as much as he has. What are your thoughts on Breece Hall? Is he a guy that, depending on the cost, are you buying him or taking advantage and maybe selling him at the moment?
I'm buying him because you're right. He's been in a lot of trade rumors, but it's like the good trade rumors. Like, oh, I want to see him go to a team where he's going to be the RB1 overall potentially, like Denver or like Dallas. Certainly not he hasn't worn out his welcome like Pickens has in Pittsburgh. So, he's got a fast draft ADP right now of 25, and he's rising significantly, which means everybody believes post draft, post free agency additions, everything that the Jets organization is doing, whether he's traded or not, they're buying in. And I feel even better about him now as an asset than the last time we talked about him, which I was high on him then. They draft Membu, the tackle out of Missouri, 7th overall. Aaron Glenn and Tanner Armstrong kind of hope he can be that Penei Sewell type anchor of the line. So this line also has gone from a high ceiling, which they had before, to a high floor with some of the guys they've brought in. They don't really have any weaknesses, even if they don't have a banging offensive line like I previously mentioned Denver. 23-year-old elite running back who has become a pass-catching magnet that's going into a contract year. So this will probably be the cheapest he's going to be for the next few if you want to get in on the action. He's a top 5 running back for me entering his prime, and it would probably be a cold day in hell before you pried him off my team without also giving me another top 5 package.
Yeah, I like Breece. I think part of the concern I had last year is that they really gave him a heavy workload coming off of that injury with the rehab with the ACL. So that was a little concerning. I think to your point, I think people are bullish on the fact that, yeah, I mean, he survived the NFL draft. He's not going anywhere. And I think Justin Fields is going to help this offense, not hurt it. We had talked about this a couple shows back, but when we look at Lamar and Derrick Henry and what they do and how they stress these defenses out, you look at Derrick Henry had a career year. Now that offense is way better in Baltimore, offensive line, scheme, all of it, you name it, the quarterback, the players. But overall, part of what made Henry and Lamar so good with running the football is just because you got to factor in the other guy. Now, Henry's a little bit more of a scarier force because he can run through your face mask, where Hall is going to be more of a finesse guy. But overall, I actually really like the landing spot with Fields. I think he's going to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield too. And let's just take a look at some of the recent trades. Breece Hall for a 109 and a 209 and a 2 quarterback 12 team league, full PPR, 1 tight end premium. I'm definitely buying Hall at this price. I mean, unless you're on the board at 109 in the draft and you see somebody say like, somebody crazy falls down to you at the 109 and you're really set at the running back position, maybe I would consider it, but it would have to be a really crazy fall. I think I'd still need more. You look here, Hall for a 2026 first. I'm making that deal unless you're telling me it's guaranteed top 3. And even still, if I'm a contender, I think I still prefer Hall because I mean this class next year it's a ways away, but I'm not super worried if I'm trying to make a push now. Giving up a future first, you're gonna have plenty of time to reaccumulate picks from now until then. And then the last one I want to talk about, and then you can give me some of your thoughts on these trades. Bucky Irving and a 2026 second round pick for Breece Hall and a 2027 round 1 pick. I'm going to take the Bucky side here. I don't really I mean, I'm trying to win now. I'm cool with trading for a first in a year away, but when it goes to 2 years away, I don't care as much. I'm good with throwing on some extras, like hey, throw a second on the back in two
Yeah.
years from now or a third, but it can't be one of the main pieces in a deal. And when you're getting a first in 2027 for Hall, with Hall, I need something in 2026. And Bucky Irving, I mean, they're pretty close to each other in value for me, and he's in a better offense. And you're also getting a second round pick a year earlier. So I think I'm siding with Bucky here, but I think the other trades for Breece, I'm definitely buying him on those other prices.
Yeah, that one's interesting to me, especially the Bucky one, because if you were to rank the assets in that trade, it would be Breece clear one, and then you could make an argument to me that a 2027 first and Bucky Irving will turn out to be of equal value. 1 year, this 1 year of Bucky Irving that we've seen on a Tampa Bay offense that just went a very long time without having a good, solid running back. So you could tell me that this Bucky Irving thing, we need to hold our horses. So that makes that trade look crazy, or not crazy. It makes it look a little worse, in my opinion. The one above it, Trey Trey Lance and Breece Hall for a 2026 first. Like, I need to get out of some of my dynasty leagues and get in with some with you all because I'm getting my ass kicked in some of mine. And there's trades like this going down out there, insane. And just to cap it off, that you would really have to hope that like a Quinshawn Judkins or a Tet McMillan fell to that 109 in
Yeah.
that previous trade. Otherwise, I just don't. Why are we so quickly turning on Breece Hall here, folks? He's 23 years old.
I don't even know if I would do it for Judkins. Like if Tet or Trevion Henderson somehow fell because
Yeah.
maybe people love RJ Harvey and it's a tight end premium, so maybe the tight
Mhm.
ends go ahead. Like I could see it, but like even in even in this one, like with the 2026 first, I don't care about Trey Lance. It's not really a part. It's not really a part of the deal. He's not even on an American football team
Yeah.
at the moment. I think he's playing in Canada right now, or somewhere. He's not even playing in the US.
God
But this
bless.
is also a 10 teamer, right? Like you need premium assets, right? And so,
Yeah.
like getting Hall makes your starting lineup better. That first round pick in 2026 could be a guy that maybe is not going to make an impact for you until 2 years. And if it's a start 10, you need as many elite players as possible and high end talent and don't need as much depth. And so I think that's pretty good. This one will be the last one I want to take a look at. The Bo Nix one and Breece Hall is interesting for Burrow, but that's going to be team dependent. But this one's interesting. I think I could definitely see a 109 and a 112 for Hall. You're kicking in a 405 with Hall. I mean, it's a start 12. It's a one quarterback. It's a 12 team start 9 half PPR, which takes a little bit of Hall's value away because he's a big when it comes to catching the football out of the backfield.
Yeah.
But overall, I think this is a little more palatable 109 and a 112.
Yeah, I think so. Because Hall is really that split between, do you view him closer to a Bucky Irving, a Jonathan Taylor, a Kyron Williams, or do you view him closer to a Saquon Barkley, Marion Hampton, a Devon Achane? I view him closer to that top group. So are you willing to give up these guys who don't really project to be anything more than maybe high wide receiver twos, running back twos with the late end of the first? Like, I'll ask you right now, would you trade Omari and Hampton for Breece Hall?
If I was contending, I would prefer Brees.
Mhm.
If I had a really aging roster, um, I would prefer Hampton.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, in a vacuum, I'd probably lean Brees if I'm a contender, but if I'm not, if I'm in the middle or a
Yeah.
rebuilder, it's Hampton.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm with you too because I think that it's going to maybe be a little bit of a Najee Harris show this year. Maybe not the star of the show, but he'll be involved. So not to get us distracted, but just to kind of gauge where we're at with Brees.
Yeah, I mean, think about it like this. At the 109, 112 and a half PPR, it's not a tight end premium. You could realistically get I mean, you could take 2 bullets in the chamber, go Amike Egbuka and RJ Harvey for Breece Hall, right? Like in a vacuum, that might not be the worst thing, even though RJ Harvey, I think, is still already a year older than Breece Hall. Crazy enough. But I mean, it's going to depend on your team, right?
Yeah,
But I think this is still more palatable. Or you could take the 109 and the 112 after this and try to go trade up, right? And maybe go get a Trevion Henderson,
yeah.
right? Then I would be totally fine doing that deal. But let's go ahead and move on and close this one out. And we're getting towards the end here. If you haven't liked the show and left us a comment already, and you hear us live right now, make sure to do so. Next player is going to be DK Metcalf, who we talked about a little bit already. Traded 1,268 times, sixth most traded player currently. And look, I mean, DK Metcalf is likely a riser too. I think we know what we get with DK Metcalf. He's not a guy that's going to likely give us wide receiver one anymore, but he did go on a tear to start the year last year before getting injured. Now he finds himself with the Steelers in a bad quarterback situation, but now Pickens is gone and he's really the lone soldier there. What are your thoughts on DK Metcalf, the recent news with Pickens, and how that, should affect him?
This is really the only guy on the list that's a faller for me, like a significant faller. His fast draft ADP is, indicative of that. He's 54th overall and he's sliding. I've always been a bit of a pessimist on him because I think he plays beneath his talent level. He's
Yeah.
trending the wrong way fantasy wise and career wise. He peaked at RB7 his sophomore year, and he's had a worse finish every season since then, despite having what I think has been good quarterback play. You can debate whether it's been good, great, or what have you. It's been at least average. So he's had the opportunity. Now he's in a place where his receiving production, where receiving production goes to die. You can spin this in my face pretty easily, right? He's a clear alpha there for years to come. They could bring in a quarterback next year or at any point, really. But what has this organization shown to make anyone believe that they're even capable of making that decision? His biggest positive is volume, but Seattle was 6th, 17th, and 15th in passing attempts per game over the last 3 years. And there's not a quarterback better than Geno Smith walking through that door. So with Pickens gone, I think this is a sell window because he hasn't stepped foot on the field yet to show people this might not go so well. I'm tuning into the Steelers to watch Caleb Johnson get 25 carries a game in an Arthur Smith offense and to watch Darnell Washington blocking guys 10 seconds after the whistle is called into the stands. DK Metcalf is just not doing it for me.
Yeah, I am with you on Metcalf. I mean, when you look at his points per game, right? 30th, 22, 24, 20. He was 10th in 2020, right? And then 41. He's only had one season inside the top 20 on a points per game basis. And he even scored 12 touchdowns in 2021 and still only had 14.4 points per game. He was ultra efficient that year, 75 receptions, 967 yards. That's it on 12 total touchdowns, which is a career high. I think the problem with Metcalf is that we've seen, I mean, dude, this guy has gotten so many targets, but they just don't connect. And honestly, he drops the ball a ton. He doesn't
Mhm.
catch, his contested catch is just not that great. And that's my biggest concern with Metcalf is I'm with you. Like, I would be trading him and selling high on this window. His contested catch rate is 19.2% last year on 26 targets. That's 100th out of wide receivers
Woo.
that are eligible. 100. This guy just, he only had 3 drops last year, but it feels like more. But anytime it's slightly contested, he's not coming down with it really. He's coming down with 2 out of every 10 passes that are contested. That is absolutely bonkers. And yeah, I mean, when you look at his game log last year, he really did have a really awesome start to the year, right? He had 28 points in week 2 against the Patriots. In week 3, 20 points. In week 4 against Detroit, 14 points. Then he went on a little bit of a little bit of a lull, 7.5, 7.8. Then he had 19 again, right? 14. And then he gets hurt in Atlanta, right? Or he got hurt in Atlanta after coming off a 19-point game, missed a couple of weeks, and then he just really wasn't producing much.
Yeah.
So he's just a guy that, man, like if his contested catch rate was better, I'd feel more confident about him. But I'm definitely selling him. And some of these prices are pretty interesting. I actually kind of thought that Pickens would be yielding more of a return, but I mean, DK Metcalf, man, continues to feast off of that name value for him. I mean,
Yep.
Metcalf for the 107 in a 2 quarterback super flex, like at 1.5 tight end premium, like full PPR, like two, super flex
Yeah.
12. Like, I mean, that's a crazy price there. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd be,
That's free money for
yeah,
whoever's getting the picks there.
I would be ecstatic about that. Is there anything
Yeah.
else that sticks out to you here, though?
I'm glad you mentioned name value because I think that's what he's running on here. You just look through his game logs of the last 3 seasons. He just doesn't have stretches of more than 2 or 3 games, or maybe 4 at max after that, to where he's able to really put together a full season. And he's done that with different coordinators. He's done that with different good quarterbacks, and with kind of always being the top dog in the receiving room up until JSN wrestled away from him last year. And that is what happened. So I just fear that, you look at who he's going around, he's going around your Olaves, your Waddles, your DJ Moores. He's just a big highlight play guy. And that is what will continue to live off of. They just got rid of one of those guys in Pittsburgh. I don't feel much better about him coming in and changing the dynamic of what this team's going to be, especially with Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers over the next 2 years. Please.
Yeah, we're gonna see. I mean, Metcalf can get hyper targeted, but again, if he's especially if he's now in an offense where he's the sole focal point, right? Like, and possibly getting double teamed, like you're telling me you don't. I mean, he's not gonna be breaking away from people and creating a ton of separation. So that contested catch rate's gonna have to be much higher for me to feel confident, especially with shitty quarterback play.
Yeah.
I mean, but looking at some of the other trades, ironically, we see him go off for a 107 in 2025, and then you see him in another deal right here, which was a 107 as well in 2025. And these are different leagues. I looked, right, 1.5 tight end premium in this one, 0.25 tight end. So these are literally different leagues. And this guy got a 2027 first kicked on top of it.
Crazy.
That makes it a little bit more palatable. But again, I'm just not that big on moving those future first. Like, give me the 107 or still in this scenario. But it is ironic that leagues are so different, right? This one did. I mean, you're talking about a first round pick, even if it's in 2027, getting added on, where this guy just did it straight up.
Yeah, I mean that 107 is especially hard to look at when you consider that. Like, I would just so much prefer your Tets, your Hunters, even your Matthew Goldens, just guys with higher floors and higher ceilings, I think. And then you get to an Ibuka, you get to a Burden, like then it gets a little tricky because you're talking about third bananas versus a clear top dog. But I just don't love. You can't count on DK Metcalf in your lineup. You just can't, and you can't count on the Steelers to count on DK Metcalf in their lineup with the quarterback play, and Arthur Smith may be gone in a couple of years. Who knows? It's a bad time to have a Steelers wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. But that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you so much. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, leave us a comment, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.